Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz singer Lisa Bell. She talked at length about her newest 2020 CD called Backseat. She started her life in Boulder, Colorado, moved on to Kansas City to jump into the jazz scene and get her degree at the University of Missouri, Kansas City's Conservatory. With nearly 20 years as a professional recording artist and touring musician, she has proved that staying power is a success for her with this new roots and jazz-infused fifth album of hers. Over her career, she has performed around the world, sharing the stage with the likes of Stanley Jordan, Christopher Cross, and Oleta Adams. Please get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
Okay, Lisa, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
You bet. So let's talk about Backseat. It's your newest release. Give me an idea of what you were going for with this album, kind of the sound and kind of how everything turned out.
So from a writing perspective, this whole album is the first time that I have written everything by myself. There's one song that was co-written, but the rest of it was really my voice. That was super exciting for me. And from a production standpoint, we took the music into the studio and really produced the songs live and let them come to life as a group. You know, what we were really hoping to accomplish is almost a neo-soul feel, some good R&B and jazz influence throughout the entire album, which I think you can hear. Really, you know, this is my fifth album, and it's kind of a compilation. It's the journey of where I've been, having started as jazz standard singer to today being a solid singer-songwriter.
So let's talk about your beginnings. Where were you born and raised, and kind of what was your childhood like?
Born and raised in Boulder, Colorado, where I still reside. I did go away and came back. And in fact, I lived in Kansas City for 8 years. Did a lot of arts, and that is where I went to college. So I went to college at the Conservatory of Music at UMKC. So I have some deep Kansas City roots, actually. And childhood-wise, I grew up here in Boulder, went to high school. It was where really music started to happen for me. And we had a really renowned jazz choir in high school that was very sophisticated for high school. And we did a lot of pretty difficult jazz arrangements. And that's really where I fell in love with jazz. And then moving to Kansas City after that, of course, was just surrounded by really fantastic jazz and jazz players, and did a lot in college as well in jazz choirs there too. So I had a strong background in jazz and a lot of jazz influence, and then really started singing professionally as a jazz standard singer when I was about 35. So it was pretty late in the game. I'd had a baby and, did the whole marriage thing and decided it wasn't too late yet.
Who were some of the players in Kansas City? Kind of what was the time frame, and who were big influences?
I would have to say Ida Macbeth was the person that was biggest influence. And so it was in the 80s. I graduated college in 88, so 84 to 88 was my time period. And really, I was being mostly influenced by the people I was in college with. So I don't know that they would be any big names at all, but, certainly was just kind of immersed in that whole thing. We had a pretty famous conductor, Steve Zagri, who had been in Kalamazoo, and he came and did an artist in residency at UMKC for a while, and he was a huge influence in my whole education. From
there, you went back to Boulder, and talk to me a little bit about kind of your beginnings when you started singing, and kind of some of your gigs and how you felt being on stage.
Started again as a jazz standard singer, and that was now almost 20 years ago, so I think 19 years ago. I didn't know any better, so I just surrounded myself with the golden circle of players that were here in Colorado, Denver, Boulder area, and just started booking gigs. And I, at the time, I had a pretty big audience to pull from, so I was able to book some pretty good gigs, and I just didn't know any better that I couldn't. So I just did. I was very naive, not jaded yet about the industry. So it was a lot of fun for me, and I just fell in love with performing and being on stage. I always had done a lot of other things, choral things and musical theater and that type of thing, but the solo jazz work was really fun.
What was one of the first live jazz shows that you saw that really moved you?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a jazz show per se, but it was when I was very little with my parents, and we saw Dionne Warwick at Jazz Aspen. That kind of blew my mind, and I just wanted to be her. So she was kind of a huge influence in the beginning.
What about early jazz albums that you listened to that really got you interested in the whole jazz idiom?
My parents really had everything from Ella Fitzgerald to Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. I mean, there was all that kind of whole gamut, and I think all of that really influenced me from a jazz-ish perspective. All of the standard singers that were way back in the day, certainly Frank Sinatra and all of that. But I think because I had both that influence and then a pop influence too, all of that has kind of flavored the music that I come up with today.
So the one thing that's very clear in your bio is the word evolution quite a bit. You've evolved over time, and that's very clear. So my question to you is this. If you have a dream tonight, you run into your younger self from, say, 20 years ago, and you can give your younger self advice, what would it be?
I would have told my younger self that I needed to start a lot sooner than I did, and that I absolutely had the power within me and the knowledge within me to write songs and write songs by myself. I think I had kind of a block in my creative mind that I didn't have enough musical knowledge to be able to do that. And I would tell my younger self that being able to play an instrument sufficiently on stage would also be a key thing in the future. So that's been my biggest hurdle to overcome. Is I've never felt confident enough to play keyboard for myself. So I've always had band members backing me up. Certainly had lots of music theory and am able to write pieces, and on the keyboard is how I write still to this day. I don't play for myself on stage. So I would tell my younger self to get your act in gear and practice more.
Why do you love jazz?
I love the way that, from a melodic standpoint, I just love the way it feels on stage, especially. I love that the players can each, take a great lengthy solo and really shine within that perspective. And even in the singer-songwriter stuff that I'm doing that's so jazz influenced, we definitely let them, especially in a live show setting, take off and do their own flavor of solos. I think I love jazz for that reason, is that it's freeing and expected, and you can kind of take big risks and chances along the way.
So my final question to you is this. Everyone has their perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you live your life. You know yourself best. Who do you think you are?
I think that I am a solid writer for the first part, and I will always have jazz influences in my music. And I do consider myself a jazz artist for that reason. I think I'm an inspirational singer. The music tends to be the stories tend to be uplifting and helpful to people of my age group, especially those who are empty nesters for the first time. So I feel like I'm a mature artist that still has plenty to say.
Lisa, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. Good luck with everything, and hopefully we'll see you back here in Kansas City to perform.
Yeah, I will be there in April or early May. So
Wonderful.
I'll be back.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Colorado, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Lisa for her time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.